Hello and welcome to this week's Fixing Football podcast. This is the number one podcast in the world that gets to the root of the problem with football. And if there's a problem, and if you want to solve it, that's what we want to do. My name is Martinell and I'm here with Liam O'Meara. Liam, how are you doing?
Very well. Number one podcast, man. That is a bold claim.
Well, this is what I'm doing now. I'm going big early on with bold claims, and then the listener can decide whether we've just lived up to that or not. But no one else is out there trying to do what we're doing. Everyone's just talking shit, but they don't really care. They just care about they have their own agendas, and I don't care about an agenda to fix it for the favour of me. I want good of the game to prevail here.
I like Matt Goldbridge's effort. I think he did one podcast of Goldbridge Fixes Football. I think that lasted one episode.
Yeah, the fucking rat stealing our idea. These people need to learn some manners and have a bit of respect for people just because you've been doing it a bit longer than other people. I don't care. It's not even his real name. I'm out here using real names and stuff.
That's true. That is true. We do use our real names.
So, this week, Liam, we're going to get into the topic of the promoted teams because this week saw and I think, if I'm right in saying, I think for the first time, all three teams who were promoted are now firmly and squarely in the relegation zone, away by themselves. So before there had been this instance, but it wasn't. What's the word? There was joint points and stuff.
Yeah.
So like 17th and 16th were on the same amount of points and stuff like that. But Leicester, Ipswich and Southampton make up the relegation zone. Southampton are way off and are in danger of looking like potentially at least on points anyway, the worst promoted team ever. I don't think we've spoken about this before, but I don't think that'll happen, but it really could.
It could have. It's definitely on the cards. It's definitely on the cards.
So I want to get into why. Why is this the case? Before we start, I want to say that it was my prediction that all three promoted clubs will be the ones who went down again. So I'm on the hunt to make out my preseason prediction.
Yeah, I think that hits the nail on the head that you predicted it. And I would, if I remember rightly, and I've not looked at this beforehand, but if I remember having the conversation, and at least all of us had at least two of them going down. No one went. Yeah, so it's not a shock that this is kind of all of us sort of saw that all three would struggle.
But last season was the first time since I think it was 98. We spoke about this a long time ago for those listeners. It was the first time since 98 that all three promoted teams had gone back down again the following season. So, and we are on track again for this to be the case 2 seasons in a row, which is unprecedented. And I think what we're trying to highlight here is the widening of the gap between those infamous yo-yo clubs that some would go up and down season after season. Some would come up for 2, go down for 3, come up. The likes of West Brom and Ipswich and even Crystal Palace in the past have been sort of guilty of that. What
100%.
Is this gap too big now? And if so, what are the reasons?
I think that's a really good place to start because I think a lot of people have referenced this over the last 2 years. But I don't think anyone's actually sat down and thought, is there a problem here? And when we were talking about what topic 2, there's quite a few things going on at the moment we could have talked about. But this one, for me, I kept getting drawn to it in that other podcasts that I'm listening to, I do listen to a lot of football podcasts. That's why I can pass off as someone who's semi-knowledgeable, just stealing away people's ideas. But no one seems to actually then pose the question, is this a problem? And then does it need addressing? Because we're talking about a real fundamental of the game here, which is promotion and relegation. And distribution of money from the Premier League and the Championship. And can these teams do it? Now, I'm of the view, and feel free to sort of comment yourself, Martin, but I'm of the view that there is a genuine problem here. I think we all saw it. We talked about it at length last season with this idea that and I think maybe unfairly last season, and we almost charged the clubs themselves with not having the ambition here.
Yeah, we were critical of Luton early on, that they seemed to be just happy to be the whipping boys until the sort of the second half of the season when it actually looked like we started to get behind them a little bit, and they decided to give it a go and just go for it in the sort of a similar fashion. I don't know if it's easy to compare because they look similar, but in a similar fashion to the way Blackpool did when they came up, and seemingly they were the whipping boys, but I don't think anyone remembers Blackpool as being that, as going down without a fight. They were only relegated as of the last day of the season that year. So that it was, that they were a club who seemingly went for it. But again, against all odds type thing. So, I mean, what is... I'm thinking about the money side of it, because that would be the obvious gap. Because to the uninformed, maybe 17th place in the Premier League isn't that far away from top of the Championship. Would you agree?
In terms of what quality of
quality,
team?
Quality.
Yeah, I mean, well, let's look at it like this season. So the playoff final last year is a very good thing to go off. That was Southampton versus Leeds, wasn't it? And Southampton won that day. Probably the better side. Southampton finished 5th, I think, in the league last year, and Leeds were 3rd. Really unlucky not to go up automatically. But Leeds are weaker, theoretically, on paper than they were last year. They've lost a lot of players. They sold a lot of players like Ritter and others that I can't name. That's a bit Archie Gray being another one. Central defender, apparently, these days. So they're a weaker side, and they're now top of the Championship. And Southampton, as we've touched on, are horrendously bad. And I suppose the question is, and I think we did wonder at the time, I think we talked about it, did Southampton ever have any chance of staying up this season? And I think when you start looking at that question, then you start to think, have we got a problem here? And what's the point?
Well, for me, and we'll get onto the money side of it, because it can't all just be down to these have so much money, they are destined to win. And because we've seen teams come up in the past and, barely spend anything and do all right. In some cases, everyone spends sooner or later. It's the Premier League, it's the nature of the beast. But for me, all 3 teams who came up were very much in the mould of Burnley the season before, and under the guise of someone in the fashion of Vincent Kompany, who wanted to play this expansive sort of remodel to play the Premier League way, almost, if you will. The way that they were very good at in the Championship. And for me, I only ever doubted them down to their styles and whether they would fit. My criticism of Southampton coming up was that I didn't think they would have good enough firepower. And I think that's been the case. I think they've been very poor at the back as well. You could point a lot of places there. But the name of the manager escapes me. Russell Martin.
Russell Martin, yeah.
He was the manager who brought them up. Again, was very stubborn in the way he wanted to play football. And for me, I think the model hasn't changed that much. Is you just come up and you be really hard to beat. You come up like the way Dyche brought Burnley up the first time round, and you become an arsehole to beat. You become stubborn, really hard to play against, really hard place to visit as well. You make that place a fortress. Insert stadium name here. And you get the odd upset here and there, and you become solid. That style of football thing needs to get out the window from day one. And this is, unless you are trying to put yourself in the shop window. We said a few weeks ago that we don't think Russell Martin's going to have a problem getting a job. Vincent Kompany definitely didn't have a problem getting a job. Who brought up Leicester this season? It was
Maresca. It was Maresca.
Maresca. Yeah, who ends up with the Chelsea job.
Well, this is a part of the problem, I would say, because you could argue that type of, should we say, stodgy sort of football, can you get promoted playing that? That's the question, isn't it? Like, and then
but you can't win the Premier League playing that way, really, either.
But it's such a hard pivot, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
To then go, right, all that thing we've built all this success on, which now absolutely chucking out the window because we need to now play this sort of become basically a version of Crystal Palace or a version of Everton that can grind out results. Do you think those types of teams? Do you think it takes time though? And you think this is the problem, that when you get promoted, you're not afforded the time that these other teams have got, that they've been able to build these squads, and it's maybe that first season just becomes such a challenge because you're not able to switch the style so quickly. I think Ipswich tried, by the way, and that's why I look at Ipswich. I think they tried to do this. Potentially.
You might be onto something though, but these are professional footballers at the highest level, and I just think we're babying these men too much, that the fact that they can't do something slightly different on the pitch in order to get to the place where they need. And I'll let you answer for every fan of Leicester, Ipswich and Southampton this year.
I'd love to do that, yeah.
And if I offered you 17th right now at the start of the season, any of them fans, what would you have rather played some fancy football, get a result at Newcastle or a Spurs or a Man United, but the rest of the season you're absolutely getting battered, you're not scoring at home 12 games in a row and you're losing 4s and 3s and 5s? Would you take that, or would you take 17th, getting it every weekend, absolutely dire football, but you know what, you can go again? You use this season as a building block.
Yeah, I think you put it over a couple of years. I think after a bit, with those teams that stay at the bottom and try and maintain the Premier League status, that becomes tiresome after a bit. I look at Crystal Palace fans, and you'll speak to them, and they're quite weary of how things are. However, that first year, that's a very different question. That first year, you would slap your hand off for something. I've been there. I remember Bolton's first season in there. I think we finished 16th the first season. The second season went to the last day, 17th.
Yep.
I think the third season went into the last day as well. I think it was a while before we established ourselves. Quite easily forgotten that, I think, before we started to really climb the table. That took a little bit of time. So, absolutely, you would snap the hand off for that 17th. I just don't see many doing it now. I mean, even let's have a look at the teams that are competing this year. Leeds, that's a fantastic Leeds team. So, and they're part of the Red Bull network now and have an absolute plethora of talent that they can dig into. So they are as well placed a part of that MCO, sort of multi-club ownership, that you could potentially be. So they are well placed for that. Then the other two, Sheffield United. I mean, they've had 2 goals at it and been horrendously bad. And yes, they've just been bought out. I don't know how rich their new American owners are. Just know they're American, so I've instantly disliked them, as we established last week. So I don't know on that front. And then third, Burnley. Scott Parker's Burnley. Scott Parker will probably have 2 or 3 games and then quit again. So I don't know. I don't know about them, although they seem to be quite good defensively. What is it, like 13 clean sheets or no, or something Burnley have got?
Yeah, they're on an amazing run of clean sheets.
So we look at them 3, and I see the same problem next season, if I'm being honest. Maybe Leeds is different, but
Leeds might be different this time round. And Leeds are still in the top 20, in the top 20 of clubs in the country that, in terms of match day profit, so what they generate on a match day,
right?
In the fan base and stuff like that. So they're a club outside of the Premier League, and they have been for some time, apart from 1 or 2 seasons that we've seen recently. But for a long time, they've been outside of the Premier League, and yeah, they're still right up there because they've got a massive fan base. They've got a good stadium, good catchment and stuff like that. It's right near the city centre, so they've got all that. Burnley are struggling. They're probably one of the, if not one of the smallest clubs in the Northwest that is dominated by successful clubs.
Yeah, I mean, they're quite wealthy, aren't they, as well? They've got their own quite wealthy American consortium behind them.
Who's this?
Burnley. Can't remember. I can't remember what the...
Yeah,
I mean, he's part of it. Is he the NFL player, is it?
Yeah.
JJ Watt? Yeah.
He fronts it out a lot.
Yeah, I can't remember what the family's called. There's a big family behind them, aren't they? I think they're from Salt Lake.
Okay.
I can't remember what they're called, but yeah, they're very, very wealthy. So I'm not. But then again, the PSR limitations stop you on that first goal, doesn't it? Because obviously, if you get promoted, use a lot of money on your PSR, the next year you're under the very similar rules under the Championship with less loss making allowed. Now we can't all do a Leicester because that loophole will be closed now. So it becomes a very risky game, doesn't it, in terms of what you invest in there? And I think this is where the challenge really comes in, because how big can you go?
Well, we saw with Nottingham Forest a few seasons ago that they just went, fuck it, bought, what was it, something like 30 players? Was it close to 30 players? Because I know there was contracts ended and loans ended.
Yes. You feel like you have to say that before Forest fans jump down your throat. Everyone knows that they had loans end and they weren't supposed to go up that year. It was ahead of the plan and all. Everyone knows that. We don't need to,
We know you couldn't go and play with 4 actual squad members left or whatever it was. And Steve Coppell, sorry, what's his name? Steve,
Cooper.
Cooper. I always say Steve Coppell.
And do you know, you said Steve Coppell, and I knew it was Cooper, but Coppell just didn't twig that was wrong. Now that you said it, I just thought, Steve Coppell. He may or may not have managed Forest. Don't think he did, but
managed someone in red as well. That's what's again
Stoke,
confusing me.
And was it Bristol City as well?
Do you know what? Wherever Steve Coppell is right now, it'll be all right, mate. Listen, Forest actually went for it. And what was their punishment in the end? 4 points.
4 points, wasn't it?
Would you take that? Considering that's not going to relegate you? Is it worth it?
Well, that's a very good question. And only owners really could answer that. But, I mean, look at Forest now. They're in the Champions League run. They're in the Champions League winning. They've run it all the way to the line by all accounts on PSR and had to. We talked about things back in June regarding their deadline day dealing. Well, their June deadline day dealings, the other deadline day.
Yeah, they were in the group of clubs, weren't they? That had to get a few transfers done.
Exactly. So, but look where they are now and absolutely flying. I think they've gone off the boil a little bit, but I think they just snap your hand off where they are at the start of the season.
Yeah, their job's done already.
But up to 9 places this year might get European football. So there's a very good chance that Nottingham Forest are going to be in Europe next year. Even now. Even at this stage in February. So they've got a very, very good chance of being in Europe next year.
I want to speak about that in the second half, but let's stay on topic here with promoted clubs.
We talk about fixes. How do we make Premier League? How do we make the bottom of the Premier League more competitive again, Martin?
Well, I don't think any of us are big fans of PSR and stuff. But
we've got another year of it now, but that's for another day, I think.
Yeah, is it worth a rule coming in where there is a bigger allowance for the promoted clubs? Because you can't argue with the TV money that the Premier League generates and the advantage that a Everton or a Brentford will have, or Wolves even, if they manage to stay away. I think they'll pull away, but even what's that other little? There's another small club who's close to the relegation zone. I'm trying to.
Are you thinking of Manchester United, man?
Man United, they're the ones down there. Yeah, maybe Man United can pull away from the relegation zone and do something because they have a lot of TV money coming in. So is that they will have a big advantage over teams from the Championship coming up, just in terms of the money that they've been able to generate over the years. So should the newly promoted clubs even be taken into account of in terms of PSR? Just let them have a free run at it for a season. It's
a very interesting point. I think extra allowance.
Extra allowance. Oh, that's a fixed something about that.
Yeah, I don't know about free hit because I feel like that could be dangerous.
Yeah,
in the sense that
a Birmingham or a Wrexham keep coming up and
No, yeah, exactly. Like that could be really, really, because there's an argument then like if you were someone like a Man City, for example, being relegated all of a sudden has a massive... Newcastle could just turn and go, well, actually, just play absolute kids for the whole season. Let's get relegated. And then let's absolutely blow the system out of the water. So, I don't think I don't think free hit is it, but I think there's something to be said about added cap. And I think also maybe the Championship and Premier League joining forces in terms of regulation, because they've got two sets of rules for two separate organisations there, and that doesn't help things. I don't think
it doesn't
look
help
at the Leicester situation.
But the Premier League is made up of a board of the 20 Premier League clubs, but that's not the way that the EFL is run from the Championship down. That is governed a lot more so by the FA. With there is added board seats for Championship teams, so there is say 24 seats, but there's a bigger incentive to take care of the 72.
Yeah, I mean it's a members thing again. It's a very similar structure. It's just bigger, so you get more. It's a lot harder to get things through the EFL, and the EFL really struggles in regards to negotiation power against the Premier League. But that's a separate topic. I think for me, sort of with regard to the Premier League, I'd be tempted. I think the cap's a really good idea. So I think that's an option one. I think an option two is 2 up, 2 down, which I don't think people will like the idea of. But at the same time, if 3 are going up and 3 are going the same 3 are going down every year, then what's the point? So I think making it 2 and 2 would increase, in my view, the quality of what's coming up, and it would essentially mean that teams that are coming up are far more ready in regards to hitting it. So I probably wouldn't do that yet. I'd see if this trend continues before I did that, because I don't think it'd be popular, but I think it should be considered if it keeps happening.
Spitballing it here, I don't like it. That wouldn't get my vote.
I don't love it. I don't love the idea of it, but I think if you're getting a situation where the same 3 consistently that come up go down, I feel like that would force the hand on it. I'm being honest, I don't like that idea. I hated the idea coming out of my mouth, but I think it's something that needs to be looked at if it carries on.
Is it not? Would it not be better for the whole game to make it 4 up, 4 down, with top 3 going up, bottom 3 going down, and then a playoff place on each side of that?
No, I don't think so.
I think that in turn increases the trickle effect of what you see the clubs in the Championship having spent and being able to spend, and you get a bigger mix. That essentially becomes a 44 club league then, just split into 2.
Well, I mean that's an interesting. I've thought about this quite a lot. This idea of a bit like the Bundesliga, where it's a 2-tier Premier League, where the funds are distributed differently. I don't think it'll ever happen, because 14 clubs are never going to vote for that. But I do think a Premier League 1 and 2, theoretically, if someone's restructuring the game without any self-interest, someone completely objective was looking at the game, I would. Well, yeah, I mean, but I think a Premier League 1 and 2 has a lot of merits. But I think that is for another day. Whether I think, because I just think there's just so many clubs at the top end of that's almost like fixing the Championship, I would say. Yeah. And I think there is a debate to be had on that. But I think Bolton when Phil Gartside was Bolton chairman, I think he was the biggest promoter of the Premier League 2. And even then, I kind of got it on merit. And I think even now, when you look at the teams at the top end of the Championship and the finances involved, it's a graveyard. And it's very hard for sustainable clubs to enter that with any kind of aspirations of going up.
Yeah.
You have to operate a hemorrhaging loss to try and compete. And the problem is particularly when you've got non-domestic ownership, if they pick it up and drop it off, you may end up with a club with the debt that like we had. over nearly £200 million worth of debt with an owner that can't put money in anymore or doesn't want to put money in anymore. And then all of a sudden you're up shit creek, and it can easily happen to anyone. So that's why the Premier League 2 thing appeals to me more, because all owners have good intentions, but when they're losing money so much to try and go up, especially at the Championship, the Premier League, it's really problematic.
So, in terms of money though, and I've just been looking at a list, but even because of TV money and international rights and all sorts of other funds that you get from the Premier League, Luton, who finished bottom, still managed to generate over £100 million last season.
Money's not everything, is it? Because they're bottom of the Championship now, and they look like they're going. Both like we're going to be playing them again very soon. So,
jeez,
they're in that new stadium in League One, that new stadium that they were so keen to tell us they paid for with their promotion, and that we were wrong. They're a long-term vision, but they're going to be in League One with that fucking new stadium now. So, we were just trying to help, Luton fans. We were just trying to help. We weren't, it wasn't personal. But whatever, your odds were definitely right. We were wrong. Whatever. See you next year. But
we did try.
Go on, sorry, mate.
I don't know here. Back to the original question: is the gap getting bigger? We spoke about the three clubs likeliest to come up at this point: Burnley, Leeds, and who's the other one? Sheffield United.
Yeah.
I'd
be shocked. I'd be shocked if two of them didn't go down.
Yeah,
at least two.
But 2 out of the 3 isn't crazy. Like, that is very, very common if you look back over the history of the Premier League. The fact that all 3 are now making the trend where it looks like very likely that... I mean, just looking at the Premier League table now, I can't see any other option. I don't see... Like, if Wolves have... I don't know the fixtures, but Wolves will beat Leicester, Ipswich and Southampton if they have to play them.
Yeah, if you look at Wolves' team, you got Cunha, Ryan Nuri, Collins. It's
Everton
a good team.
Crystal Palace will, Man United. I like bringing Man United into it, but they are though.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're 15th.
Yeah, all them clubs will beat them 3. Them 3 clubs just will not pick up any points. They struggle to pick up points off each other. So, I mean, but like I said, 2 going down isn't crazy, but you expect someone to pull out and let's shuffle the pack a little bit. Yeah,
I think they're two obvious fixes. I think yours is the better one, but I think with the 2 up, 2 down, I think see if it continues, and then that'd be a for me. But again, that will never get voted by 14 clubs. So what do we know?
No. Anyway, I think in all honesty, I think the 2 up, 2 down will more likely get voted because there's less chance of there's all of a sudden 30% less chance you'd go down for the clubs further down. Anyway, right, let's go away. Let's sit with our thoughts for a few minutes and let's try and work this out between us. While we're doing that, if anyone who's listening could please go and subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, that would be fantastic. If you want to follow us on Spotify or Apple Music, wherever you're listening to this, that would be very helpful too. Over 50% of people who are listening aren't following or subscribed, so them numbers really do help us in terms of growing and trying to make this thing a little bit better for everyone. So please go and do that, and we will see you after the break. And we are back. Episode 92, I think it is. So we're coming up on 100, Liam.
92.
I want to do something fancy. Listen, for 100th episode, we're gonna get ourselves in a little studio, film it, some proper production. Let's see what this thing could really look like. But and Scott and Luke are going to be joining us. We've had confirmation, so that'll be fun. That'll be a bit of a party. What are you bringing to the party?
Well, what am I bringing to the party? Well, I'm the main attraction. So, apart from myself, Martin, I I'm going to try and help us out with some snacks, maybe some nice drinks.
Big spread.
Big spread. Big spread. I know Luke likes a spread. He only leaves the house for a spread. So I'll do my best, Martin. What about yourself? Other than literally all the production?
Yeah, other than literally doing it, paying for most of it, and organising the whole thing. Most, yeah. 80, some would say maybe 80%. I don't know. I'll bring some booze. I want to drink. Whenever we're doing this, I'm going to be drinking.
Fair.
I need to. So that leaves Scott and Luke to decide on some party favours that they can bring.
Yeah, well, Luke likes to drop in some fun facts into our little group, doesn't he? So maybe he could bring some more of them.
The word "fun" being the loosest use of the word. Right, I've got a question for you, but
is it about Arsenal?
No. Before that, I wanted to ask you about Bolton Wanderers because I feel like it's polite to do so.
Yes.
But I'll be honest with you, they've squandered themselves into a pretty boring situation for me. I was excited at the beginning of the season. The run-in last season left me feeling a bit hollow. And I'm a bit empty with care for Bolton Wanderers now, so I'm trying to...
Well, I mean, I must admit, I felt pretty similar. The end of last season was very disappointing. Right. But go on, what's the question?
How are they getting on? How are you feeling about it? It was another win at the weekend.
Yep, 3 wins in a row, all 3 coming from behind, which is nice. That's
you said this was an important one to get through as well.
Yeah, it's a big game. We're now level on points with Leyton Orient in 6th, so we've gone level with them. Particularly with the 2 games that we've got coming up, which is Wrexham away this weekend, and then Birmingham at home on the following Tuesday. So arguably the 2 toughest games we've now got in a row. Very popular for you as well. Yeah, 2 of my favourite clubs, I would say. Good ticket sales so far in that Bolton Birmingham. 24,000 I think sold right now. Good. So should be a good night. But yeah, I mean it's important. 3 wins in a row. Teams we should beat. Leyton Orient on a bit of a knife edge. That could have gone either way. But what I'm really enjoying is the fact that we seem to be able to mix things up. Like, we are genuinely changing formations mid-game. We're changing styles. We're bringing on players not just to fill almost like light-for-light replacements. We're genuinely thinking about substitutions that can change a game. We're taking off defenders to bring on midfielders to add structure. But it's really refreshing to see a manager that would do that, because even when things were going well under Ian Evatt, it was never ever changing styles. It was always like a like for like sub. Now, don't get me wrong, to be the occasion where the player is bringing on offers something different, usually in attack, but it was never a change of style, ever. That never happened. So it's very, very refreshing, and I think it's making us quite hard to predict in terms of our lineups, which is good. So no real mourning. I get what you're saying, and I think we are in a frustrating position because the best we can hope for is to get in the playoffs, and I think it's going to be a tough ask. Like, yes, we're level on points now, but in a week's time, I mean, just over a week's time, when people listen to this, could be very different. We could be 6 points off, but we're in the mix, and that matters. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm more positive than I was a few weeks ago. Let's put it that way. Well, that's good.
Right. My question for you was about expectations.
Yes.
So I think it's fair to readjust your expectations and predictions and things as the season goes on. Even though you might have them pre-season ones, the fun ones that we like to do, and who's going to win the league, who's going to get relegated, blah, blah, blah. But you have got to reassess as the season goes on. No one would have Nottingham Forest where they are. I don't think people would have Villa as low as they are, to be honest. When I looked at the start of the weekend, they were 9th before the weekend started out, which surprised me. So, obviously, Man United, I like to bring it up, but Man United, Spurs, no one expected them to be where they are, even though it would have been fun. So, what I wanted to run through is sort of where we're at in the Premier League at the moment and expectations for the remainder of the season and what you think constitutes a good season from this point, because there's no point saying at the start of the season you was trying to win the league and now you're not, so it doesn't matter. Then all these things have to be reevaluated.
Is this a way of talking about Arsenal season? Like, are we talking about what's in it for Arsenal for the rest of the season? Is that kind of where we're going with this? Are you having like a bit of an existential crisis that you're having about what's left to play for? It's all right if there is, because I would get it, because I think we're in a similar boat, not quite as severe because we've got to fight for the playoffs, but we're in a similar boat.
It isn't. Well, the genesis of this didn't start about Arsenal, but it was because I was looking at Villa and Forest a lot, to be honest, and where they were. But we can mention Arsenal because
I think let's start with Arsenal, like, because I think, and I'll get my points across first because I've just sort of railroaded it.
Please do.
Yes.
Arsenal season now and for the remainder.
Right. So Arsenal season is a failure. However, that doesn't mean that you just write it off, because there's still a lot to play for. You're still in the Champions League. That's going to be very difficult, I think, without a striker, but you are still in it. So wins in the Champions League will matter. That you've not been in, even in this current version of Arsenal, you've really not progressed in the Champions League yet.
Quarterfinals last year, yeah.
Yeah, so you really want to be trying to push as much as you can on that. So I think there's that to play for. Secondly, you've got to really want to secure second. Yes, people will take the mick out of second, but you're still the second best team. And it's the best that you can hope for now. So you play out this season and you start again in the summer. Now, does that mean that the season will be seen as a failure by others? Yes, it will.
Yeah.
Let's be honest about that. It will. However, right now, that's the situation. And you've got to kind of deal with that. And
just to put some colour into it for those who aren't as maybe up to date with things at the top of the Premier League as others. So Arsenal lost to West Ham at home, had the chance to close the gap to 5 points between them and Liverpool. And Liverpool went away to Man City and won 2-0, increasing the gap to now 11 points, although we have a game in hand against Liverpool. So, we're back down to 8, hopefully. But our next 2 games are Nottingham Forest away, Man United away. They won't be easy. I just think, if I'm all honest, mate, after the January transfer window, as soon as that closed and we hadn't made the signings, I had a feeling that that's what the club were doing. Now, while it is still, I will say on the side of this, while it is still mathematically possible from this day forward, we are still going for the title. Every time Liverpool, because Liverpool aren't going to win every game between now and then. Every time they do drop points, I will get myself excited, despite the reality of where we're at being 11 points behind with 10 games to play. Or is it 9 games? It's 10 or 9, 8 or 9 games to play, whatever it is. I will get myself excited. I will get my hopes up because I am that idiot fan. What I am not is the idiot fan who is calling for everyone's head and screaming down certain social media platforms and, wanting heads to roll because of us not making signings or, losing games that we shouldn't do. Sometimes a loss is a loss and it's hard to take and it sucks because of the bigger picture, but I'm not getting overexcited about certain things.
Yeah, people want accountability, don't they? Like,
yeah,
they want to see someone pay for the fact that they've not got what they wanted. But I think any action that and people will say at times, like, at what point does Arteta XYZ, right? But if I'm being genuine about this, because I know I can sometimes try and wind you up a little bit. Sorry about that.
Sometimes.
But if I'm being genuine, would replacing Arteta make you better? I think the answer is no.
No, absolutely not. I'm right behind Arteta here.
However, has there been some terrible decisions regarding recruitment in the last year or so? Yeah, horrifically so. But Edu's gone. I don't like the idea of you giving Arteta more transfer control, because there's no way he's not been part of your recruitment decisions. Mm-hmm. So I think you need someone else to come in externally for recruitment. And I think that would placate a lot of your calling for the head fan base. If it was, because it would almost be a little bit of a wing clip on Arteta, I think, as well.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, you're right. He isn't without his faults, Arteta. I'm not saying he's immune of mistakes and stuff. He's got stuff wrong. We're still dealing with a guy who's 5 years into a job that he was barely qualified to do in the first place. So he's still a rookie manager, and if you look at the rest of the Premier League in terms of the experience that they have, so he is going to make their mistakes. About the transfer stuff, yeah, I think we're close to appointing a new director of football, CEO, whichever one it is. It was Jason Ato who's been doing it, who was sort of Edu's understudy for a long time.
Have they changed? I mean, I've not seen any news on that. Have they changed? Because that was the idea that they were going to do that, weren't they? They were just going to promote from within. Have they changed their mind already on that? Or
I think Ato's going to stay on, and there's going to be someone else coming in. So that
I think you need that. I think you're too big to not have that.
I agree. And what we'll say is that I think Arteta wanted people, but the club couldn't make it work. And I don't know the ins and outs about this, but it might be interesting for another time, is that while we were told that we were clear in terms of PSR for the Premier League, I think we were cutting it fine in terms of UEFA's PSR rules.
All right, okay.
So again, I don't know the ins and outs about it. I did hear that on another podcast. I think it was on the Fan Debate on the Overlap show, but it was one of the lawyers there talking about what we could do in terms of UEFA.
Okay.
So that may have hamstrung us as well a little bit, regardless of the fact we should have just gone and done something. But expectations now. So I'll round off on Arsenal because I want to run through a lot of Premier League clubs.
I'll let you finish.
Second, yeah, you're right. That's got to be the goal. We need to box off second. I don't think. Yes, you could say it's a failure, but staying second in the Premier League is no mean.
Well, it is. It's a failure, but it's the best you can do right now. And then, so that's just a fact. Like, you don't. It is a failure, but at the same time, a failure from now would be to finish third. So
big time, yeah.
Yeah, so that you have to try and do it, yeah.
Right. So Nottingham Forest now. We spoke about them before, and you said they're having a bit of a blip. What you're expecting?
Well, they've got to try and finish in Europe. I mean,
yeah. What is
aim for the Champions League? It's going to be 5.
This is the question now: is what does success and failure look like? If you was the chairman of Nottingham Forest, what do you deem as acceptable now for the rest of the season?
Qualifying for Europe.
Any Europe conference league.
Any Europe, yeah. I would say, if I was a Forest fan, that's what I'd want now.
I agree. I totally agree.
I mean, obviously, Champions League would be amazing, but
it'd be stunning, yeah.
But they've not been in Europe since Clough, have they? So
no, there was another year they got it. I think it was the year Pierre Van Hooijdonk was playing. I remember that. And Colin Moss. It was a little bit post Clough, but then.
Yeah, well, yeah, that would be amazing for them as a fan base, even Conference League. So, Europe as a minimum. And yeah, don't get me wrong, they'd have taken 10th at the start of the season, but we're going to be in March very soon. So, and the 3rd. So, yeah, Europe is a must for Forest now.
Right, I want to flip the script now. Man United and Tottenham, I'm going to put them in the same boat. I'm going to take Europe off the plate, sort of.
It's very different then. Because, go on. In terms of what Premier League finish?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think. I'll be very surprised if Man United finish anywhere higher than 10th. If they get top 10. They are 10 to 13 points behind Chelsea, I want to say. And Chelsea are what, 5th or 6th? I had the league up before, and I've been an idiot and closed it.
Yeah, I'm getting the league table up here.
The 13 points behind Chelsea. Chelsea is 7th.
Okay.
So, and Spurs are only 3 points ahead of them. There is a big bunch up from 12th to 17th there. 12th to 16th, which will be Spurs, Palace, Everton, Man United, and West Ham. Ahead of that, then you're looking at from Brentford, Fulham, Brighton, Villa, Chelsea, Bournemouth, Newcastle, City. There's less than 10 points separating 11th to 4th.
Yes, if you can get into that bunch kind of thing, you've got a chance.
Yeah.
I think it's asking a lot. I think United's an absolute non-star. They're just poor. So I don't think they do anything in terms of qualifying for Europe through the league. Spurs, maybe, but I still think it's a tough ask because what are they now?
I think that would look like an incredible end to the season if Spurs end up with European football.
Yeah.
What that looks like in terms of week on week, I just think it looks like an absolutely brilliant run of form.
They don't have the FA Cup though, so that does help. So they will have weeks off. So they've got So they're
still in Europe though.
They are still in Europe, yeah. They're still in Europe, but they will have more breaks than, let's say, Man United will, or Aston Villa do, or Chelsea. So they will have breaks. So there's that. But they're going to prioritise Europa League, because they absolutely should do.
So we're talking about 5 places for the Champions League as well. So what I'm going to put into play here is Brighton, Villa. Brighton in 9th on 40 points. Villa 8th on 42 points. Chelsea and Bournemouth 43. Newcastle and City on 44. That would be 4th place.
Well, hear me out here. I was listening to the Athletic Football podcast over the weekend. I like it because it comes out on Sunday night. So it's good. I think that's a good way to do it. But we don't really cover that side of things, so it's not a big issue for us. But they were saying that there's a good likelihood that it'd be 9 European places in the Premier League this season, with the way that the cup finals have worked out as well.
And that would that sort of take into account Chelsea more than likely winning the Conference League as well? Yeah,
exactly. I mean, there's no excuse for them to not win that in a sense.
No, not at all.
It does take into account that, and that takes into account United and Spurs, one of them two winning the Europa League as well.
Interesting. Okay.
And that also takes account Liverpool winning the Champions League final. So you're going to Liverpool winning the League Cup final and Newcastle qualifying Champions League by league place, which I think will happen. So it's going to be 8 or 9 places in Europe for the Premier League this season. Which is nuts, isn't it? Yeah, it's nuts, that, isn't it? Bolton didn't get in once at 7th, I think.
Side note, so you see Newcastle finishing 5th. That was going to be my question. Who makes up the top 5 then, the Champions League spots?
I think Newcastle finished 4th. I think.
Well, 4th.
Maybe even 3rd. Maybe even 3rd. Actually, I've got the table in front of me now. I think 3rd potentially. I think Newcastle finish above City and Forest.
Yeah, there's only 3 points in that. But again, there's only 1 point then to Chelsea, and a further 1 point to Villa. So there's nothing here stopping Villa from finishing 3rd. With the amount of games we've got left.
It could be anyone's. I'm trying to find a case in my end for that 5th and 6th places, but it could be anyone. I mean, I'd even say Fulham have a very good chance of. Yeah. Because they seem to be on form a little bit as well. So
Fulham are weird. It's like they can just turn over anyone on the day and also get absolutely battered the next day.
Yeah. So
what I'm getting at here is expectations, sort of end of season predictions. What is good for teams here? What is acceptable? What is, because for me, I think not Champions League football is so bad for Newcastle. I think if they don't finish in the top 8. No, which again could be a possibility. If they lose 2 games on the bounce and teams around them pick up points, they could be 8th by the next time we talk.
Yeah, they're blowing hot and cold. They're blowing hot and cold as well, aren't they? They're not. They were brilliant for a while, but the form's dipped a little bit.
Yeah, whenever they play us, fucking bastards.
So we'll see. I think if they win the League Cup, I think there'll be less. I think that's their key focus right now, isn't it? That league. It's been so long since they've won a trophy; they're obsessed with it. So, I think that's their key focus. But I do agree in terms of their consistent moaning about PSR being in the Champions League with the new Champions League format helps that so much.
So much, yeah, you're right. And is there anyone else? What about? I mean, I think we are seeing Chelsea walk to a European competition title here. So that will guarantee them at least European football. And I don't think any of us had them really in the mix for the Champions League. I mean, I actually did have them in my top 4 at the start of the season, but
Chelsea's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Chelsea's an interesting one because they don't need the Champions League as much as others because they've got the Club World Cup. And that's going to be a
big one.
That's a massive earner. So don't get me wrong, if they were to qualify for the Champions League and partake in the Club World Cup, win that Conference League, that's a massive earner season for him.
That's the sort of look that someone like Todd Bowley gets in it. Like, it's, horrible, stupid billionaires.
So this is it. So it's a bit of a funny one, Chelsea, but they do look like they're struggling all of a sudden. And they seem dead certs for top 4. But they don't look like that now.
And last one I was going to touch on is Aston Villa. Like I said, I just mentioned that they could easily go and finish 3rd. They're again another one who blew out and cold a lot.
It's hard, isn't it? First year in Europe, they're draining those nights on them. But it's a classic cliche, but there's definitely something in it because you look at Newcastle season when they were in the Champions League. There's definitely something in it. Yeah,
you're right. Cliche stuff. Is it going to be a problem for them? Because there was some graphics going around about profit versus wage bill last week that had come out.
Yes. I've not really looked. I saw that there was a breach in European rules. Was it? Is that? I've not read it. I'll be honest. It popped on my phone. I thought I'll read that later, and then forgot until you've mentioned it now.
Basically, what it was is about Spurs. We've spoken about Spurs quite a bit, and the way that Daniel Levy runs the club, but they spend about 40% of their profits on their wage bill, which is significantly less than anyone else. I think Arsenal were the next lowest, and then it goes up and up and up till...
Yeah, it's not so low, they are Spurs, really.
Yeah. I think it was 43%, that's right.
Yeah, it was definitely beyond with a 4. I remember
Aston Villa were on like 97% of their profits is spent on their wages, and that's before you take into account, I'd chuck a Rashford in there and an Asensio and a Marlon and all these other players who they've literally just bought. I can't see Duran would have been taking up too much of of them wages. So
no, that's a fair comment. I think, yeah.
Are they going to be? I mean, they've had a good year this year, so maybe they can take into the account the Champions League money that they will then receive following this year. But could failure to get into the Champions League again be a disaster for Aston Villa?
I suppose only they'll know the numbers, but they definitely want to watch on the PSR line, aren't they?
Yeah.
I think them and Chelsea are the ones to watch, but Chelsea are buoyed by that Club World Cup and the fact that they do have players with real selling value, Chelsea. I know Scott likes to say the whole league is worried about their strategy. Not sure I agree with that, but they do have sellable assets to get them out of it. They do. They have a great academy, and they have a lot of young players that they could either get fee-paying loans for or sell. So I think it's a bit easier for them to manoeuvre, but it's definitely worth watching Villa's situation, I agree.
Is there any other club who you think we've missed there who we need to speak about? I'm not the only one
Everton.
Talking about. Well,
Everton, that's the one that sticks out to me with the form that they're on. I mean, I don't think they'll push as high as Europe, but I think they can enjoy. I think they're in a position where they can enjoy the last sort of few months of Goodison now. Like they can just enjoy it for what it is and move into that new stadium.
No, I definitely agree. I'm a fair play to them. Like getting Moyes in, great decision. It's exactly what they needed. They'll get the odd result here and there. They'll still get turned over here and there as well before the end of the season. But I think, I don't know. There's something non-threatening that I like about Everton.
Not sure I agree, but fair enough.
And West Ham as well. They're probably just the ones who are going to coast to the end of the season. They'll probably make another managerial change and buy 16 more strikers. And
they've got a good manager, I think, there now. It'd be interesting to see what they look like next season. but
yeah.
Don't want to push. Don't want to be in the. They'll want to be in the conversation for European places, but they're one of those waiting for the end. I think they're waiting for the end of the season really now.
Yeah, much like me, Matt. I'm ready for. Ready for it to be over now. Right. I think we can call it a day there.
Well done.
How's your exercising and weight loss journey going? Let's just catch up on you for a minute.
Yeah, I'm around 4 pounds off the 4 stone mark.
Well done.
It's mad, isn't it, when you start thinking about it like that? So, yeah, we keep paying mine. How are you, mine?
I'm not well, but this podcast isn't about me. Like I've said,
no.
You're the main man.
Yeah, I agree. I've been saying this for a long time.
Right. Please, everyone, join me in thanking Liam for gracing us with his presence once again.
Thank you, mine. I think we're getting on the roll. We're getting into good topics, I think. I'm liking how this is going these last couple of weeks. I think they've been good.
Yeah, we've got some guests coming up as well. I've been lining some up, so we're going to extend the roster, like I've been saying. We've got some fresh faces coming in, some fresh voices. Thank God, fresh voices. God.
I know, I agree.
Right, thank you everyone for listening. I do appreciate it. Please do like and subscribe and share. Get on the Instagram, get on X if you can stand being around that toxic cesspit for 5 minutes. Drop us a follow, that'd be nice. And we will be in touch very, very soon with details about 100th episode and anything else that comes up around that. All the information can be at www.fixingfootballpodcast.com. You find all the links there. And we will catch you on the next one. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.